Welcome everybody to another CTC webinar. My name is Sean Zerbis, Technical Evangelist here at CTC, and today we're going to talk about what is Hive. We're going to go through a comprehensive demonstration of Hive and let you see exactly what the features and functionality is that you can play with or work with inside the Hive environment. So perhaps you've heard of Hive. Maybe you haven't seen it much yet, but you've heard of Hive and you've kind of heard a bit about the buzz about Hive. And you really want to know what it actually is. How does this affect you? Well, we're going to kind of go through the features. We're going to focus primarily on the end user aspect of this, but we will touch lightly on some of the admin aspects as well. So those of you who are company administrators can understand a little bit about the administration portion of Hive, though we do have other webinars already recorded that go much more deeply into some of the user management and library management features. But today, we're going to take a look firsthand as to how Hive works from the aspect of an end user. First off, though, let's take a look at some of the problems that we're hoping to solve by using Hive. So files, right? On your network, tons and tons of files. So many files that users have to navigate through. Revit content, PDFs, help documentation, right? Just these files are never ending. And the problem is that this Windows file structure gets out of hand very rapidly. You get a file. You want to have it perhaps referenced by more than one folder structure or more than one folder in your Windows system. And the problem is that, then you have multiple versions of this file floating around, and who knows which one's the latest one. And really, our file structure hasn't changed in a very long time. You have files, used to be pieces of paper, and sometimes some of us still have that, but files that sit inside of folders, that sit inside of other folders and other cabinets and areas in our office. And again, if you want to have the same document in more than one place, usually you're going to end up copying it. And you're going to have that file referenced multiple places. And again, things aren't always up to date, and that can be a problem. And here's the other big issue. File names aren't always enough to identify what's going on inside that file. A Word document, maybe it's pretty close, but maybe it's a coded document. It has an ID on it. People want to know more about what the content is inside of it. Or if it's a Revit family for the Revit design application, there's parameters and types and other information inside of that. Or an AutoCAD block or a Dynamo script, right? There's all kinds of different types of files that can be in our file system. And really, the file name is rarely enough to truly identify exactly what's going on inside that file. And the other problem here often is people want to access files outside of the office, working from home, working from a job site, at a coordination meeting, right? There's a lot of places outside of our typical network where people want to be able to access some of the content that's a part of our standards library. In a lot of cases with Revit, you might want to share these files with outside companies so you can partner together and work with exactly the same file set. And again, they're not going to know what your file structure is. Even if you did share a portion of your library, they're going to have to navigate through and understand all your folder structure and organizational methodology. And that can be difficult. So really, that's where Hive kind of comes into play. It helps to solve all of these issues. So let's take a look at Hive itself, and I'm going to kind of take you through a series of different things here that Hive can help you with. First off, we're going to talk about some general navigation of Hive. We're going to take a look at Hive again from the end user's point of view. We're going to look at some content details and some of the information that you can dig into inside of a piece of content in Hive. And content is kind of a generic term, but really what I mean is file data, right? Word documents, PDFs, families, whatever. We're also going to take a look at how users can consume the content, how they can open it, or how they can load it into a design environment. And then we'll talk lightly about a little bit of administration so you can understand how some of that works. And like I mentioned before, we have a lot of really detailed portions of this demonstration that dig into specific aspects of Hive already pre-recorded on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, do that. Also take a look at our Hive playlist, and also, of course, today's presentation is being recorded as well. So you can view this in the future if you need to. So let's dig in and take a look at Hive itself. Well, first of all, I'm going to go out here to my desktop, and what you'll notice is that Hive is actually an application on my desktop. It's a Windows program. So if I open that up, let's go ahead and double click on Hive right now. When I open that up, what it'll do is it'll bring me to the login interface. So Hive is a login-based tool. That's first and foremost, and each user that logs in is uniquely identified and also has specific rights. In this case, I'm going to sign in as my demo account, and so you can see what the end user portion of Hive looks like. Here you can see the interface is actually fairly simple. If I have this pulled up, I'm going to go ahead and navigate to my user control. I can see, how long I've been a member, when I last logged in, some basic settings for myself. I can also go through and search for content. That's one way of navigating the library that exists. I can use a discovery method to discover information about content based on file properties, and I'll show that in a minute here. I can save and manage my saved searches, and I can also, if it's allowed by the company administrator, I can make requests. And as a company admin later on, you can actually disable requests if you'd like. And I can also see information about this. Right now, I happen to be on Hive version 19.0.0, and yes, the version 19 does work with Revit 2019 for those of you who are already installing 2019 in your office. So it's ready to go for that. You can also, through Hive, if you happen to have it installed already, get access to the playlist of videos that is available for Hive. You can also, of course, like all of our tools, request features and report bugs in case you happen to find anything wrong with it. First off, though, let's go take a look at just general searching for content. As I was mentioning, Hive can actually handle files of any type, right? It could be training videos in MP4. It could be training documents in PDF or Word doc. It could be standards and procedures in PDFs and Word docs. It could be Excel files. It could be anything. Revit files, AutoCAD DWG, Dynamo scripts, anything. Here what I'm going to do is just search for something. Like, let's say I wanted to know more information about level of development. I'm just going to type in LOD, one of the properties of that file, and see if I can find anything about level of development. Well, here's the 2017 spec guide document that's sitting here from 1106. It's a simple PDF sitting out there. There's also the 2017 1107 document. This one here I'm noticing actually has an attachment and it has a link. So you can actually associate other files to content that's inside of Hive, and you can actually link out to original websites. So if you had manufacturer content, you can link to the manufacturer's website or their spec documentation, or in the case of this particular spec, this level of development 2017 part 1, this file right here actually has a companion document. Well, as an end user, I can actually open this up. I can double click on the file that's sitting inside here in Hive that I've discovered. And once I've opened up this file, of course, I can read through it. And part of this document is going to tell me to reference an Excel file that allows me to go through and actually spec the level of development for my project. This is custom project to project, so something that a user would actually edit and interface with. Not the PDF, the Excel file. So with that, what I can do as an end user is I can actually right-click and go take a look at the details. You'll notice I can open it from the right-click. I can actually browse to its original location in Windows, assuming I have access to that. And I can also see its details. Now, the details allow me to see some of the extra information that's been added by the admin team. So things like attachments, things like the links that are associated, any revisions to this document if there's been a new upload for this particular file. Any comments and or ratings that were submitted by end users. So I can see who's rated it, I can see when they rated it, and if they happen to have updated the rating, I can see that as well. So I can see how this file has improved over time. If there's a poor rating, and then I'm seeing revisions after the rating, perhaps there's been improvements to that file, right? This is most important, at least in my opinion, on the Revit content side. But you can obviously use this in a lot of different ways. Let's get back to this attachment here. This is an Excel document, as I was mentioning, that can be customized and used on a project-by-project basis. So I can check download. I can actually download this file, save it to my project, and then continue to edit this in my environment. I didn't have to know where this file originally existed. Doesn't matter. It's associated to this level of development spec that I read about, told me to do these things. I can now access that particular file and customize it. Or if I wanted to know more about, say, the bimforum.org level of development as a whole itself, I can double click on this link right here. This will open up my web browser in my native web reader, and I can navigate through their web page. So again, you can link people out to manufacturer sites or whatever's appropriate. All right, let's go back and take a look at some other content. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Revit 2018, and we're going to open up a project here in Revit. Now, I haven't installed 2019 in my computer yet, so I'm still working 2018. But like I said, Hive does work in the 2019 versions. In fact, 2015 through 2019. Within Hive itself, there will be an add-in inside of Revit and once I get a project open here, you'll be able to actually see that the add-in exists up there on the ribbon of Revit itself. So we'll give this thing just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and open up a project file that exists out here. Basic work sharing enabled project. Don't do what I do, by the way. Don't click on shortcuts inside the projects area. It's usually better to go open. I'm just doing this as a quick shortcut for today's demo. Up on the ribbon, though, inside of Revit, once I finish this opening, on the Revit Express Tools tab, where the rest of the CTC Revit Express Tools exist, there will be a Hive Suite add-in sitting out here. When I click on Hive, just like with the Windows program, it allows me to log in. And it's going to remember me in this case because I've got that option checked. So as I click Login, it is going to log me in and give me access to my content again. Now, if I wanted to search for something specific, this is an architectural project here in the background. Let's say I go to a floor plan and I want to drop in a door, for example. I'm going to pan over here and look at a specific area of my floor plan. Maybe I want a side access door to this particular training room. So I'm going to look for a single door. Now, I can just type in single door here, and I can find some content that will match that, but I'm probably going to find things that might not necessarily be relevant. I'm going to find things like casework. Now, it does have single door in the file name, but that really isn't what I'm looking for. What I really want is 2018 content. Since I'm in Revit 2018, I'm looking for door categories of objects, and I'm looking for something that's a single swing door. So what I'm going to do is begin to filter this down a little bit. I'm going to go over to my Revit categories, and I'm going to start searching for door. Now, I can type in door right here in the Revit categories and choose doors, and what that'll do is it'll actually start filtering here for doors. I'm also going to choose 2018 so I can guarantee I'm not going to get 2016 content. You can see I can actually find content from previous versions if I want to. Now, if I was in a previous version, if I was in 2016 actually, automatically Hive would filter out future versions because you can't consume that. So the Revit-specific add-in has a little bit of extra functionality specifically targeted towards Revit. The Windows app, the Windows program, can find all content and has a little less Revit-specific functionality, but of course all the same searching and all those other same capabilities. It just doesn't know much about Revit because that's very custom to the Revit tool. So I'm going to go ahead and filter for Revit 2018, and I'm just going to type in single right here. When I search single now, it begins to find me specifically doors, because that's one of the filters that I have, specifically Revit version 2018, so I should not see any 2016 content in this list, and it's going to find me anything that is related to single, whether it be a part of the file name, which most of these will be, or whether it's related to one of the tags sitting out here. Now, I have both imperial and metric content in this list potentially, because I do have tags here for imperial and metric. So you may want to go through and actually filter out and exclusively get imperial content, not lead, sorry, imperial. So I can force this to only find imperial content when I'm searching, and again, I can research this again, and maybe I find about the same results, or maybe I don't, but I can actually find specifically the content that is meaningful to me. All right, now when I want to use this content, what I can do is I can find something here, and if it has a T next to it, that tells me that this particular piece of Revit content has a type catalog. Or, if there's other types of, files in this list, it probably wouldn't have a type catalog if it wasn't Revit content. But in this case, I'm filtering exclusively only for Revit files right here. You can see only Revit content is checked. So if it has a type catalog, it'll have a T. I think if I scroll down far enough here, yeah, I guess all these doors have type catalogs right now. We'll search for something in a moment that doesn't necessarily have a type catalog. But if I want to consume this, it's simply a drag and drop. So I can see I've already loaded this door once. I want to load it again into a project. So I'm just going to simply drag and drop it into my design environment. What this will do, since I do have a type catalog, I'm going to guarantee that I'm going to get a type selector here. Users do have the ability to turn that off if they really don't want that. But I'm going to go ahead and load some types into my project. And what this will do is load exclusively those two types, just like it would if I was loading this out of Revit. In fact, if I drop down my type selector list right here, you can see my 34 by 84 and 36 by 84 door has been loaded, and it's ready to be placed. So I can drop this into my design environment wherever I feel it's appropriate. So, or I can, of course, rehost this someplace else if I need to, whatever. That's just regular Revit, but I can find this information from Hive itself. Now, one thing you might have noticed here is that I was able to collapse Hive. I can expand it out, of course, as well if I want to, but if I have it collapsed and I want to search for something else, like maybe double doors, type in double, it will rerun my search, re-expand Hive out for me, remembers the filters that I previously had set, and now in this case, it's going to find me something like, I don't know, a double door that's a glass door. I can grab this thing and drag and drop it into Hive, and again, choose certain types that are relevant to what I'm doing right now and load those. Once again, it's going to load those types in a matter of seconds and allow me to place that door into my design environment. Now, you can actually take these searches and you can save them so that you can, if you're going to be using these searches repetitively, you can recall them on the fly. So one of the things that I have here is something like a rectangular air terminal search. If I search for this now, it's going to look through and find all air terminals that are imperial, that are specifically in a certain library. So I haven't looked at this yet, but you can organize your content into libraries and leverage this as a method for filtering some of your content. You can also give users rights to specific parts of the library, and we'll take a look at that in just a minute. So I can find this content. In this case, it all happens to be 2016. Notice I'm not filtering the version now. When I had that rec saved as my search criteria, the other search criteria was the library, the tags, and the category. I did not filter by version because most of my air terminal content is all in 2016 at this point. Haven't upgraded it yet. So I could find this stuff and I could load this into my project. Now, if you do load content from a previous version, it's going to go through that one-time upgrade, of course, and it's going to take however long it takes to get that upgraded. I'm not going to drop this into my project because I know this is a rather complex family and it'll take it a little bit longer than I want to wait to actually have it upgrade. Now, let's take a look at some of the other functions here. I'm going to clear out some of these search criteria here, and I'm going to go ahead and search a specific library. Let's go back to that level of development search, LOD. And I'm going to uncheck only Revit content so I can search for that and find that document here. Again, if I right-click on this file, now that I'm in Revit, I actually have the ability to load or reload if it's Revit content. That's actually grayed out because this is not a Revit family here, so it's going to be a little bit context sensitive while I'm in the Hive Revit add-in. But I can open it, I can check its details, and I can open it in File Explorer. Remember, I showed you that before. Now let's go back and search something like those single doors. Now, this particular library, this user, I believe, has what's called contributor rights. That means they can contribute to the data in this library. In the other library, the user was only a consumer, meaning they could only open content. We're kind of talking a little bit administratively now. And I'm showing you a little bit what the admins can control. As an end user, when I have the ability to contribute to a library, you'll notice that I have some extra options down below. I can now tag content. So if there are not enough tags on here and I wanted to add swing, for example, as a tag, I could perhaps add that tag if it already existed in my tag list. You can also comment on content, and you can also rate content. So if you wanted to update the rating here and go, well, I think this is a 4-star door instead of a 3-star door, I can update that rating appropriately. In this case, if I go into details, I can actually see, if I go over into ratings, that there's been 2 individuals who have rated this content. Originally, I rated this content back on 4/19, and now I've just updated my rating today. And I don't recall what my original rating was, but my current rating is actually 4. And there's actually 2 ratings of 4, so this has a 4-star rating on average. I could also, again, leave comments on this if I felt that I wanted to leave comments back to the admin team. Another feature that it does exist inside of here, if you allow it, is the ability for users to make requests. So I can go over here to my requests. I can see my requests that I have made. Now, I'm not actually an admin inside of Hive with this particular user, despite my name saying company admin. That's inaccurate because this user is not actually set up as an admin. But over here, I can see the requests that I've made. I can see what's been set as status by the admins. In some cases, some of these are pending and has never been touched. But perhaps I want to kind of follow up with the team again and say, talk with whoever is the admin of these libraries that I feel like an opening tag should be available. So I could, have that as a bit of feedback to them. They can go in there and track this as well. I can see that I had made a request a while ago that was additional tags for architecture. I was asking for Herman Miller and Steelcase as tags as manufacturers, and that was rejected, probably because I can already filter by the manufacturers. So No need for me to have tags for that necessarily. But you can actually allow users to add requests. Now, when they're adding requests, they can suggest a library. They can give a subject line for this request and some details about that. And they can also suggest tags. But here, in my opinion, is one of the most important portions of a request, and that is the ability for users to associate files. Maybe they're asking for certain content to be added to the library, and they've already got a starter piece for that content. They've already built a document or made a family or downloaded a family, or they have manufacturer cut sheets that are related to this request. They can attach that directly, and then as an admin, when you are going through and kind of navigating the requests that have come in, you can actually see those attachments, you can download them, and then reference them while you're building that piece of content or making your decision about how you want to handle that particular request. All right, let's log out from this user and log in as an actual admin and take a look at some of the other admin controls. So again, I don't have to do anything really to Hive. All I have to do is log in as a user with appropriate rights, and I see some additional controls over here. Previously, most users will have their controls stop at requests, and they will see the About dialog, but all of this information in between that, libraries, content, and the adding of content, the company controls, tags, users, and user groups, none of that will be seen by most users unless they're an admin or a company admin. So you as admins have the ability to go through and add users to the actual Hive library. You can actually have them synced to your Active Directory system. In fact, you can see this demo user right here is synced to Active Directory, and despite, again, their name saying company admin, they're not actually set up as a company admin inside of Hive, so that limits their rights. With Active Directory synchronization, you can actually have their user groups, the security groups in Active Directory synchronized. In this case, I don't have that, but that is an option. But you can also make your own user groups here if you'd like. Users and user groups are important because at the library level, you as an admin can go through and you can control which libraries certain groups and certain users have access to. So that Revit content out of the box library, where most of my content is actually hosted right now, you'll notice that everyone is added to this library as a consumer, whereas that demo company person right there was added as a contributor, and this is why they have the ability to tag and comment on content. And also rate the content because they're a contributor level. So there's three major levels of rights inside of Hive: consumer, contributor, and admin. Consumer, again, only open and drop content into a design environment. Contributor can tag and basically add a little bit of information to it, feedback and ratings. And an admin can actually, if they're an admin of a library, they can add content specifically to the library. So they will get in their interface access to the content and add content tabs, content to administer the content, and add content to actually be able to upload new files. Typically what I'm seeing companies do right now is taking and having it like an everyone group, and typically everyone within your company is probably going to be established as a contributor so they can rate and comment on your content, and then very few people will be set up as explicit library admins inside the list. So you might see a setup more like this from the administration side. Contributors for most everyone, and admins for specific individuals. All right. Now, you also have the ability at the company level to control some of those things. Do you want users to be able to rate and tag content? Maybe you don't want that. You can disable some of that functionality if you don't want average users to be able to tag stuff. You only want them to rate and maybe submit requests and comment on things. So you can disable certain bits of functionality for them. Also, you can choose whether or not your library is cloud hosted. I mentioned earlier that you have options inside of Hive as to whether you want your content cloud hosted or not. It's not forced to be uploaded, and it's not completely disabling uploading. Well, you can actually do that if you wanted to. If I uncheck this always upload content option here, this would completely disable the uploading of any content regardless of library setting. In my case, I have that checked. That means it is able to upload content. And then at the library level, you actually have control as to whether this particular library uploads its content to the cloud or not. And if it is uploaded, then any user who can access this library, as long as they have an internet connection, can gain access to the content. Now, if they're behind your company's firewall, they'll default to the original location where the file is located, so they're not constantly caching stuff from the cloud. But if they are remote from the office, they will have access to this library. There may be other libraries that maybe you've got sensitive information and you don't want those files up on the cloud, that's fine. You can certainly disable that. Like I have a financial library sitting right here. If I open this one up, you'll notice that upload the content is not checked. Also, at this point, I have no users who can discover this file, so never mind that. But if I was to add a group like everyone in my company being able to, maybe consume some of this information, but I don't want that cloud hosted, I can certainly set that up. Or what's probably more likely is I might have a group that's specific for my finance team that might have content inside of here for some of their processes and procedures and maybe some documentation. But again, probably don't want that uploaded. So I have the ability to limit that. All right. Hopefully this all makes sense to you. Let me close some of these documents down here. I'm going to go ahead and jump back into my Hive presentation. And we're going to continue on here with some conclusions about Hive. So Hive allows searching all content, independent of folder, independent of file type. So it really gives you a lot of extra control. Hive does allow searching of the metadata of files, including some of the custom tags. Now, I wasn't using tagging a whole lot here. I did talk about the imperial tags that I've got set up, but you can set up tags for things like different disciplines. You can set up tags for different aspects of objects like swing doors versus sliding doors that might not be a part of the file name, but you can certainly leverage that. Content has the option of being hosted in the cloud or exclusively on your local network. You can choose that. Now, if it's hosted in the cloud, it's still on your local network, but users can find it when they're remote from the office. Users effectively experience instant consumption of files. They don't have to know where these files are coming from. Doesn't matter where they exist in the network. They're basically in one environment doing one-stop shopping for all their content needs while they're in a design application or whether they're in the Windows program. Either way, they can find the files that they need. There is specifically design software specific consumption. Revit, for example, has the ability, has that app, that add-in that sits there that gives you extra control and extra filtering over that Revit content. But effectively, Hive is, again, the one-stop shopping center for all of the files and content that users are going to need. And if you are cloud hosting it, it makes it very easy for users outside the firm even to be able to gain access to it.